I was sickened. I was sickened by the standing ovation. I felt like Hollywood is just spineless, en masse. And it really felt like, oh, this is a really clear indication that we're not the cool club anymore.
Sauerkraut, waterfall, olive, all bow, wow, call, tall, pow, south side, outside, pow, outline, missile thought, fire bounce, higher powers out now. I was outside, now my power, pow, now. Eyes wide, shoulda speak utterly, upside down, camera obscura, power down, scuba, mama in Cuba. My it sounds good now, out and about, title bout, bow, how loud, high lie, move tie, Aztec, forearm, NASDAQ, abstract, back rockin', chow down, hazmat to do so start diametrically outbound. Matter of fact, past that ginger pop in the cooler than the medulla of Rick the ruler. Hula hooping with new bow downs from Nuba. That's that life of a king. Got my crown now, feeling accomplished. Super looper fresh chocolate, collectible conscious. Young crunk in your town now. Via minor aircraft, snapping like a bear trap. Tijuana Air Max, chainmail gauntlet. Big Bertha earthquakes, 100 dB, 90 BPM, heavy hitting them triplets, 100-sided dice, rolling 79 twice. Get ready, we bringing the jazz back with the rhythm we giving them sentiments to some Midwest liquid mission, tricky nicks and mixing, matching, scratching, rapping, action, Jackson making it happen, pap it, midi, patch it, map it with a pinch of magic, casting master sentences with a gang of wicked vixens, listening close to O's, flipping different widgets, mystic digits, coast to coast, pole to pole, folding time, golden time. Overload.
I'd announced this morning that I was suing Will for $200 million because that video is going to be there forever. It's going to be ubiquitous. You do not have the right to walk up on stage and smack somebody in the face because they said words.
Since Sunday night, the Academy has launched a formal review into Smith's actions on stage, and Will has since issued a statement apologizing to Chris Rock, saying in part, quote, "I would like to publicly apologize to you, Chris. I was out of line and I was wrong."
It's the Oscars moment that shocked the world. Actor Will Smith, walking up on stage, slapping Chris Rock in the face after he told a joke about Smith's wife. Moments later, Smith would win for Best Actor, his first win, and earn a standing ovation. Now a new apology from one of the most well-known celebrities in the world. Here's ABC's Kana Whitworth.
Oh, wow! It was one of the most shocking moments in the 94-year history of the Oscars. Actor Will Smith slapping comedian Chris Rock on live TV, stunning the audience in the theater. And at home, millions watching in the U.S. and all over the world. Tonight, the Academy condemning Smith's actions in a new statement, adding, "We have officially started a formal review around the incident and will explore further action and consequences." The slap, coming after Chris Rock, made this joke about Smith's wife, Jada Pinkett Smith, and her shaved head.
Jada, I love you. G.I. Jane 2, can't wait to see it. All right?
Will Smith appearing to laugh at first. His wife, Jada, clearly not happy with the joke.
That was a nice one. Okay.
Will Smith leaving his seat, walking up to the stage, and right up to Chris Rock.
Oh, wow.
The audience stunned in the moment. Some there and at home wondering, could this have been part of the show? Audio of the confrontation was cut in the U.S., but not abroad and not online.
Will Smith just smacked the out of me.
Keep my wife's name out your mouth.
Wow, dude.
Yes.
It was a G.I. Jane joke.
Keep my wife's name out your mouth.
I'm going to, okay? That was a greatest night in the history of television. Okay.
Rock collecting himself, then continuing with his category. Diddy taking the stage next.
Okay, Will,
and Chris, we're gonna solve that like family at the gold party, okay? But right now we're moving on with love.
The whole incident leaving host Amy Schumer to then say,
"Did I miss anything?" There's like a different vibe in here.
Tonight, the New York Times reporting that according to sources, there were serious discussions about removing Smith from the theater in the 45 minutes between the altercation and the award for Best Actor.
Will Smith!
Instead, Smith back on stage to a mostly standing ovation, winning his first Oscar for King Richard, the story of Venus and Serena Williams and their father's role.
Richard Williams was a fierce defender of his family.
Smith suggesting he, like Serena and Venus's father, was now protecting his family.
Art imitates life. I look like the crazy father, just like they said.
Also sharing what fellow Oscar winner Denzel Washington told him during a break.
Denzel said to me a few minutes ago, he said, at your highest moment, be careful, that's when the devil comes for you.
Smith apologizing to the Academy, but not to Rock.
I want to apologize to the Academy. I want to apologize to all my fellow nominees.
In recent years, Jada Pinkett Smith opening up about her struggles with hair loss. It's unclear if Rock knew that. Tonight, Will Smith now apologizing to Chris Rock, saying violence in all of its forms is poisonous and destructive. My behavior at last night's Academy Awards was unacceptable and inexcusable. I would like to apologize to you, Chris. I was out of line and I was wrong.
What's up, TTM Academy? This is DJ Radon, and we're going to do another lecture today on, this is about the history of cinema and as it relates to humiliation of black people, right? You know, as we know, everybody's talking about one thing, a big distraction, right? Everybody's talking about the slap that took place at the Oscars. And, you know, as a black male, you know, not only do we have to deal with, you know, having the name of our cast being the black cast, right? We know it's a caste system. And, but we have to live with everybody in the world internationally forwarding memes, you know, deprecating black males, and, oh, shout out to Crims in the house. Deprecating black males, you know, it's a daily thing, right? One day it's Kanye, one day it's Cosby, you know, one day it's, you know, the next day it's Will Smith and all this stuff. And so, yeah, I'm going to talk about the history of Hollywood as it relates to black exploitation, not just the black exploitation film era, because you could argue that the majority of Hollywood black film is blaxploitation, right? Not just the gotta beat the man stuff going up a hill, so it's kind of out of breath right now. But yeah, so you know, we're gonna be talking about that today, and so we're gonna start with Birth of a Nation, right? Birth of a Nation, if anybody doesn't know, that was the first like full-length film, and they debuted it in the White House. I believe it was in the 20s, and you know, it was about the KKK rising up and you know, taking back America post-war, post-Reconstruction, and this is also for TTM Academy students. You may not know this because you know, sometimes it seems like the past is forever ago, but you know, you may not know this, but I'm actually the first generation in my family to be able to have education. I'm the first post-war generation, and when I say post-war in America, I'm talking about the European war on black people, right? And you know, the war just ended in the 60s, right? You can say 1967, they made the law where black people could marry anybody. But before that, they were, you know, heavily prohibiting us. You know what I'm saying? They were burning our businesses, you know, bombing us, you know, rioting in our cities, you know, and the civil rights movement was us trying to teach them dignity, teach them how to act like a human, how to act like a person, right? So here we are, let's fast forward, zoom to 2022. You know, most people think, oh, that's all over, but you gotta remember, Will Smith is also part of that same generation as me. as he's the first in his generation. You know, people born after 67, maybe he wasn't born after 67, but anybody born after 67 that's black in America in the black caste, you know, I use that interchangeably. When I say black, I'm talking about the caste system, because my skin's obviously not black. You know, Korean people are obviously lighter skinned than the average European, the modern Koreans, you know what I'm saying? And but we don't call them yellow, we don't call, you know, we say they're Korean, we give them dignity, you know what I'm saying? But black people, we're not giving any dignity. And you should check out a podcast that I just did. I think it's like podcast 23 or 24 with Paperboy Prince. He's running for former mayoral candidate. He's running for governor right now of New York. He just interviewed me in a podcast, and we were just talking about the fact that you know, most meme culture is kind of based on the exploitation of black people. You know, so it's like you go girl, or you know, all the like weird looks and the sipping tea kind of meme culture is based in black culture. Just like everybody wearing sneakers and sweatpants and sportswear out, that's also part of black culture. You know what I'm saying? Like you go to China right now, even if they never heard of hip hop, you know what I'm saying, they're wearing hip hop outfits. They're wearing, you know, hoodies, and you know what I'm saying, black culture is the predominant culture because we are the original people. You know what I'm saying? And you know, our genomes, we have, you know, in my family I have, you know, people that look like, you know, all types of people in the world, whereas most families, their genomes are very select. So, you know, black genomes, you know, carry the full span. So that being said, you know, there's always been a resistance, you know, in the U.S. To black males doing well, you know. And we're going to talk about the weird rap group and the book breaking controversy and all that stuff later on tonight. We're going to do that lecture tonight because it's very pertinent what's going on. But, you know, I turn on the TV and, you know, we're here in 2022 and it's still black people acting a fool for the Euro diaspora. Like, was this whole thing planned like professional wrestling? It seemed like it was. To me, it seemed like, you know, it was kind of staged, and it was more like a, you know, pro wrestling, you know, Hulk Hogan, you know, hitting Junkyard Dog in the face or something. You know what I'm saying? It seemed very, very staged. But regardless of that, we got to talk about the politics involved. So, you know, Chris Rock being a dark-skinned male who's also very political, you know, just like him and Dave Chappelle. You know, we don't have Malcolm X's anymore. We don't have political leaders. All we have is comedians now. All we have is Dave Chappelle and Chris Rock. Chris Rock and Dave Chappelle are probably, you know, probably the most political of all the black cast comedians out there, right? And now we got, you know, one of the more Samboian. When I'm speaking of Sambo, I'm not talking about the original Sambo, black god of, you know, of Southeast Asia. I'm talking about the modern, you know, tweaking of Sambo into being, you know, a stereotype. And by that I mean like bootlick culture. And let's actually rewind back, because I was actually in Men in Black 3. And, you know, just an extra in it, you know, I was in the Warhol scene where they're partying with Warhol back when they go back in time in the 60s. But, you know, so I was on set with Will, and, you know, I remember me and Equete at the end of, you know, maybe the last day of shooting. It was just me, Equete, shout out to Equete from Dragons of Zinth, Equete, lead singer Dragons of Zinth. It was me, Equete, and Will, and maybe a producer lady, and maybe like some like security guard, right? And he's talking to the producer lady, and we're just, me and Equete hanging out, waiting to, you know, holler at him and be like, yo, you know, we're big fans or whatever, you know what I'm saying? And, you know, he just, you know, he wouldn't talk to us, you know, even though we're just sitting there, right, staring at his face, he wouldn't talk to us. And, you know, he's that type, you know, a lot of people are, you know, if you're not doing something that's going to make them money, you don't exist to them, you know. So, you know, as far as this whole dynamic of a light-skinned black person smacking a dark-skinned black person, and the whole world being like, yeah, that's exactly what was happening, you know, 100 years ago, 200 years ago, you know what I'm saying? You know, they're constantly trying to ridicule us through the media. And, you know, one could argue that, as I was saying before, with Birth of a Nation, you know, one could argue that Hollywood in itself the whole Hollywood is actually all about birth rate politics. And for those that don't know what birth rate politics are propaganda that's used to either increase one group's birth rate, like eugenics, or decrease another group's birth rates. You know, so the same thing that happened with Margaret Sanger, the person that invented Planned Parenthood. You know, I think they should dissolve the name and make an apology and, you know, and ban Sanger's name from being used. But yeah, she, you know, spoke in front of the KKK. Just like Birth of a Nation, this was all around a similar time. You know, the eugenics era and, you know, the Nazism, world wars and all that type of stuff. All that stuff is all connected, right? And we know that in Nazi Germany, you know, I believe it was a woman filmmaker, you know, who was the main propaganda filmmaker, you know, for the party. We know that film can be used for propaganda. So when film came out, you know, that's all it was at first. You know, if you look at the old Disney movies and all these things, it was propaganda. And if you look at new Disney movies, it's a new school propaganda. And many people aren't able to unravel the new school propaganda. So that's what we're going to be talking about today, because this whole thing with, you know, Will smacking Chris Rock, that's new school propaganda. So as one is showing, you know, perpetuating black on black violence, you know, and, you know, people, you know, laughing at it and forwarding it, you know. And what's also really troubling is when you see the memes and it'll be like Chris Rock, you know how with memes they'll put some words on somebody, you know, in the picture to represent a particular thing. So I saw, you know, something saying like negative energy, you know, it's like negativity, and that's Chris Rock. And positivity is, you know, Will Smith smacking the crap out of him, you know. And then, you know, I've seen stuff that say like obstacles in my life, you know, the negative obstacles in my life, you know, and they put the words on Chris Rock, a black man. So all that's a Trojan, and we've explained what Trojans are in previous lectures. You know, a Trojan is like when somebody calls me a black male, they're also calling me extortion at the same time, because, you know, certain words have, you know, double meanings, certain words have hidden meanings, certain words have associations, right? So if we say, you know, the word, you know, these words, let's wait for this cars to go by. Oh, some military thing happening, right? That was a regular guy in a military car. But yeah, so, you know, words are very powerful. You know, people call me black male, you know, it says that on my ID, and that's like, boom, that means you're, you know, black, right? And we have black and dark and all these things. The connotation is negativity and wrongdoing. So the prevailing myth is that black males are us black males, so that YouTube knows that I'm black, algorithm wise, because that changes things. You know, society views us black males as kind of like you know, like we're primates. They try to, you know, make us like we're primates and we're just kind of jovial people, you know, cartwheeling around, you know, smacking each other, doing ratchet stuff in poverty. And the reason that we're in poverty, as you know, as not the as a majority of us, you know, not to say every black person's in poverty, but the black people around the world, you know, the millions and millions, billions of us that are in poverty, you know, they look at it as like, oh, that's our fault, not because of European warfare. You know what I'm saying? Not because, you know, you got to remember all the lynchings that happened in America, that those were mostly black business owners. They weren't just lynching homeless people. They're lynching, you know, like if you take the Tulsa bombings, you know, all those people, those in Black Wall Street and all that, you know, we have Black Wall Streets all over America. We have architecture all over. You know what I'm saying? We built the buildings before they got here. You know what I'm saying? And they try to act like, you know, we were all running around the woods, be it in Africa or be it, you know, wherever, and they brought us all here. But all that stuff is all, you know, propaganda. So Hollywood uses, you know, Liz Taylor and these fake Bible stories to promote the propaganda that, you know, to supplant themselves in history, which is called anachronism. You know, making them look like they have, like they're not more than 7,000-8,000 years old. You know what I'm saying? As a group, you know, because we have the genetic proof, and we've proven that in prior lectures, right? So we know that the history of Hollywood is rooted in white supremacy, and the way that relates to birth rate politics is that if you do the research, you'll see that in America and in Europe, the European diaspora is in a negative birth rate. So if they're in a negative birth rate, that means that there's more deaths per births. That means less babies are being born than people are dying. So both in America and Europe, more people of the European diaspora more older people are dying than babies are being born. And the Mexican and black blocks or castes, if you want to call them, right? We're not in the negative birth rate. So, many people have theorized, such as, Dr. Joe Pookrum Dr. Joe Pookrum too, but I meant to say Francis Cress Welsing, that their quest to, eradicate us and, ridicule us in the Oscars and things like that's all based in, wanting to up their birth rate by lowering our birth rate. If they can't up their birth rate, they have to maim us, jail us, imprison us, neuter us, you know what I'm saying? And, if you go to, California, they're sterilizing black women in California, North Carolina, in Israel, they're sterilizing the black Hebrews because they know their birth rate's higher. They don't want Israel to become a black Hebrew nation, right? Because the black Hebrews that live in Israel and the ones that have, repatriated out there, I'm talking about the New Jerusalem, not Jerusalem, just so people know. We'll do lectures on Jerusalem and stuff like that in the future. But I'm just talking about, modern Jerusalem and stuff like that. So all over the world, we're being exterminated, right? And when you turn on the TV, all you see is, black violence, even Denzel had to say it, or somebody said it, that the fact that, the only, black males like Denzel, they're only winning Oscars when they're, portraying negative stereotypes. And also, like a bad cop. And then also, Will winning the Oscar, I don't even watch the Oscars. I'm tuned out of Hollywood. I don't subscribe to that pantheon, And we'll talk about European pantheonism in a second. But, as far as Will Smith, yeah, he was, very shady to me in Equete. He acted like a robot. Meanwhile, I was in a movie, Old Dogs, with John Travolta and Robin Williams. And Robin Williams was mad cool. He was joking with everybody, talking to people. If you said something to him, he wouldn't just ignore you if you're 2 feet away from him. You know what I'm saying? Like Will Smith did to us. So, when that kind of stuff is at stake, it's like, did Will do this? Is this all a professional wrestling thing? Who knows? Who cares? All that matters is the aggregate visual outcome, right? The aggregate visual outcome. So the aggregate outcome is the world is right now, everybody and their little baby and their grandmas, everybody's forwarding memes that are dissing black men right now. And last week it was Kanye, and Kanye was constantly in the news, and they banned him from the Oscars, even though the Grammys, they banned him from the Grammys just for online stuff, right? But obviously Will's not getting canceled. And if you look back at our old lecture on DaBaby, remember DaBaby got canceled for dissing people with AIDS, so-called dissing people with AIDS, which he wasn't. He was actually just dissing giving head in the parking lot. Who wants to, they're trying to make that like, that should be part of black culture. Like, yeah, you should want to give head in the parking lot, right? But Will Smith said, all the people with AIDS, be quiet, back in the 80s, you know what I'm saying? Right? And he started all that. He was the first one to say, if you don't have AIDS, type of thing, or all the ugly people be quiet, that type of call and response that's part of hip hop culture, right? So, we know that Will Smith has a past, and we got to think, why does he have a past? One, he's light skinned, right? He's part of the turnkey, you know what I'm saying, right? And what does Chris Rock represent? Chris Rock has always been, exposing racism in America, and now Americans can finally laugh at him and be like, ha, that's stupid. These stupid black folks, hitting each other. Like we got World Star culture. We'll do whole lectures on World Star in the future, right? And it's also an important note that the guy that started World Star is dead, right? Why is that? He was very young. You know what I'm saying? But So with this ridicule thing, as a black male, it's offensive when I just turn on social media and I see nonstop memes coming from everybody, from black people, from my homies in Europe, from all over the world. And I even hate to say homies, because if somebody's posting memes that are dissing black males, how can I even say that's a homie, right? And I've noticed too that what's really, really troubling the most is when they're putting the words in the pictures, like I was saying before, right? They're having Chris Rock represent negativity, and that implants itself into people's minds, right? So, when Frances Cress Welsing was posing the question why, she's like, why is the European diaspora, so malicious in destroying nations around the world, enslaving people, trying to control, hoard all the wealth. It's like it's never enough. It's like they already got all the wealth in America. 98% of all the land in America is owned by European males, or the descendants of their wives that passed away, or whoever, their estates. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, a lot of people feel like, Martin Luther King changed everything, so we can all laugh together. But it's like, no, it's not like that. We can't all laugh together, because we're still, the average black person in Boston, I believe, is way in the negative in their debt, while the average Caucasian diaspora Bostonian, I believe, is like maybe $250,000. Their net worth is $250,000, while black males and women are in the negative. Maybe West Indians might be like, maybe they got $2,000 saved up in Boston. I'll show the statistics on that. But yeah, with all these things, Hollywood is $1 billion industry. Even I'm here in Atlanta right now, the film industry is booming, but it's still all run by European people. Like, you don't see black people on film sets unless it's like a music video shoot, or it's like a, thing like that. And it's like specifically a black director that's like, hey, I'm going to hire some black people, or mostly black people, or whatever. But out here, you'll see, this is a majority black city, black mayor. I'm in a black neighborhood right now. I'm in a, suburban black neighborhood right now. But all the film sets you see, you don't see that they're not giving any jobs to black people. In Atlanta, they just put a program together for PAs, and they're like, we're gonna make seven PA positions available, right? And my cousin, shout out to my cousin Sean. He's a dope screenwriter. He applied for it. He's like, yeah, I want to get in the film industry. He applied for it, and they denied him one of those 7 positions. But remember, only 7 positions of an entry-level job, that's nothing. They're throwing us pennies. And that's why as black filmmakers, we need to, really stand up and resist, any black artisan in whether it's the film industry, entertainment industry. It's very important that we, own our own things, because we can't just be happy with like, yeah, we'll just, be praised at their awards and, all those types of things. We're happy with them owning everything. And if somebody owns everything, imagine if Germans were making, in 2022, making anti-Semitic stuff. That's what's happening with, be it the radio and all the hip-hop exploitation, hip-hop industrial school-to-prison pipeline complex, to just general foolery. They're promoting black foolery all the time, right? And, one of my favorite filmmakers, Stanley Kubrick, as I've spoken before in lectures, he actually won the W.D. Griffith Award. W.D. Griffith is the one that made the original Birth of a Nation. Before the Nat Turner Birth of a Nation, he made the original Birth of the Nation movie. That was the first full-length film that screened in the White House, right? It's like really 2 hours long. And shout out to DJ Spooky, who actually remixed it. He remixed it in the late 90s, right? Because, a lot of the terms like Grandmaster Flash and Grand Wizard Theodore, those are KKK terms, So we were in the 70s, a lot of the black youth gangs and things like that. We were that was when, we first got free. And the 67 was, you could say that's like the year that, the hundreds of year war, just hundreds of years of war finally ended, as far as, apartheid and stuff like that. But now it's all institutional, obviously, right? Right? Or unless you commit a crime, because once you commit a crime, you're allowed to be a slave. They haven't changed that law yet. It says, yes, you're allowed to become a slave. And it's also important to note that there's just as many black males in jail right now as there were enslaved during slavery, the slavery wars. So it's like, you know, they've been able to keep that working engine the whole time, right? And that's what we've been. We've been the engines for society. So, you know, black culture and things like that, meme culture, we're the engines of meme culture, you know. And then they call us engines, you know. They used to call Indians engines, right? And, you know, they were making us, we built the White House, we built all these things like an engine, like a machine, you know what I'm saying? And then they've projected, you know, being lazy and being hypersexualized, they project all that on black people. So the common prevailing myths about black males are that, you know, we're lazy and, you know, we're hypersexualized and we're violent. And what is Will showing in that? He's showing we're kind of crazy, like we're going to be in the middle of the Oscars and hit somebody, right? But this is where we're going to talk about Adrian Brody, right? Adrian Brody. I'm going to start saying things a couple of times because sometimes Facebook will censor a lot of times things of what I'm saying. Like I was just giving a lecture last week in New York and I said the word masonry and boom, it cut off. If you look at that video, you see it cuts off when I was talking about black people, you know, originating masonry, you know. But yeah, so you know, you got to think about these things. So, you know, W.D. Griffith, they had an award for him in Hollywood. If you're the best director, it was called the W.D. Griffith Award. You know, the guy that made the KKK movies. So that means every director that ever got an award, you know, the highest award was the W.D. Griffith, basically KKK Director Award. So, you know, Stanley Kubrick, who's one of my favorite directors, probably he is my favorite director. You know, he won that award. But he didn't show up to the award ceremony, and then he denounced it, you know, during the speech. You know, he was saying he accepts this award, but he doesn't accept, you know, W.D. Griffith and all the propaganda and racism that he stood for. And that means that every director before Kubrick was cool with it, which means they're down with the program. And that's what we're talking about today, being down with the program.
I think there's an intriguing irony in naming the Lifetime Achievement Award after D.W. Griffith, because his career was both an inspiration and a cautionary tale. His best films will always rank among the most important films ever made, and some of them made him a great deal of money. He was instrumental in transforming movies from a Nickelodeon novelty to an art form, and he originated and formalized much of the syntax of movie making, now taken for granted. He became an international celebrity, and his patronage included many of the world's leading artists and statesmen of the time. But Griffith was always ready to take tremendous risks in his films and in his business affairs. He was always ready to fly too high. And in the end, the wings of fortune proved for him, like those of Icarus, to be made of nothing more substantial than wax and feathers. And like Icarus, when he flew too close to the sun, they melted. And the man whose fame exceeded the most illustrious filmmakers of today spent the last 17 years of his life shunned by the film industry he had created. I've compared Griffith's career to the Icarus myth, but at the same time, I've never been certain whether the moral of the Icarus story should only be, as is generally accepted, don't try to fly too high, or whether it might also be thought of as forget the wax and feathers and do a better job on the wings. One thing, however, is certain. D.W. Griffith left us with an inspiring and intriguing legacy, and the award in his name is one of the greatest honors a film director can receive, something for which I humbly thank all of you very much.
So the Hollywood program, you know, even if you look at the new Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, I did a whole review of that. You know, they turned it out. You know, they They made a 12-year-old. There's just so much debauchery that they added to the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. You know, for the 90s kids, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air was equivalent to the Cosby Show. So you notice, like, these icons, we don't have that many black icons, and then when they start battling each other, hitting each other, you know, it just makes us look stupid. So everybody forwarding the stuff around the world, they're forwarding the stereotype of black male foolery, right? Now we're talking about Adrian Brody. Adrian Brody is the guy, I'm going to show that picture. He's the guy that sexually assaulted Halle Berry on stage at the Oscars. They were doing an award, and he just came out of nowhere and tongue kissed her. You know what I'm saying? And the whole America was like, yeah! And that's the same thing that was going on in slavery times. You know, they were having picnics. They were having picnics where black people were being lynched and hung from trees, and they were actually having picnics. So we know sociopathy is part of Hollywood culture. You know, we're not even going to talk about the Hollywood occultism yet. We'll get into Jack Parsons and, you know, Thelema and, you know, the esoteric, you know, Hollywood white witches and white warlocks. You know what I'm saying? That's why it's kind of cool that, you know, Jordan Peele's, you know, created a whole new genre. This kind of like race horror genre that's, you know, pointing out a lot of facts about, you know, U.S. history and the Euro diaspora history being like a horror movie for black people. So it's like we're living in a horror movie or we're living in a comedy, right? And you know, they're pushing us from back and forth. You know, either they're raiding our villages and towns, burning it down, or, you know, denying us education. Like my mom, for instance, you know, she was born under apartheid. So my grandfather, my grandmother, everybody in my family was born under apartheid except me. So, you know, a lot of people in Europe, you know, they're seeing Ukraine and they're like, oh my gosh, how can the world be turned over upside down like that? But it's like, yo, you know, as I said before, you know, Europe is totally touchable, and, you know, things can happen really quick. And, you know, they did a thing where they colorized a bunch of black and white pictures, like Martin Luther King pictures and things like that, so that people could see that stuff wasn't that long ago. Just because it's a black and white picture doesn't mean it's like dinosaurs, because that's what a lot of people look at history like. Most people under white supremacy, they look at it like, hey, if it's, you know, more than 30 years old, let's not talk about it. That was, you know, a million years ago. Meanwhile, it's like, no, what do you mean it's a million years ago? People are still, just like how Jay-Z's saying he's still living off of money from the 80s, there's people, there's European diaspora people that are still living off of slavery money. Whether it's Wells Fargo, you know, if you go to Wells Fargo right now, look in the back wall and look what date the quote is from Wells Fargo. His quote, the guy from the actual Wells Fargo guy that started it, is from 1864. The war wasn't even over yet, you know. So when Wells Fargo was out, you know, that's a slave company. You know what I'm saying? That's why I would always suggest pulling your money out of any slave bank. You know, any banks that dealt with slavery, even schools, Harvard, Yale. You know what I'm saying? I'm not going to tell my son to try to go to Harvard and get a bunch of debt for the European diaspora. You know, the average, I guess, black male and black female, we're only making $45,000 to $55,000 a year in America, no matter how much money we put into student debt, while our student debt is just rapidly escalating. So it's like we're you know, they let us out. They're like, oh yeah, you can have education now, but now we're going to charge you, you know, exacerbated amounts for the education, you know. So they're constantly scamming us, you know, right now. So now it's like, you know, we got to be $200,000 in debt when we're just coming out of college. You're, you know, 23 years old, 22 years old, or whatever, and coming out with mad debt. So it's like, you know, they're just constantly exploiting us. So with Adrian Brody, you know, forcibly kissing Halle Berry on stage, which is, you know, a form of molestation, you know, everybody applauded him, right? But imagine if everything was reversed. Imagine if Wesley Snipes, you know, smacked Tom Hanks, who, you know, is a supporter of blackface, as you might want to look at my chart, right? You know, imagine if he slapped him. Imagine if Wesley Snipes, a dark-skinned brother, you know, who was actually wearing his Masonic regalia at the show. I'll show a picture of that. He's actually wearing some, you know, he's actually a Nuwapian for those that don't know. So he's totally adept on you know, all the Hollywood, you know, stuff and, you know, Masonic systems. Because really it's, Euro diaspora male, Masonic warlocks that run Hollywood, because, if you're not down with the program or cool with whoever people, like how Harvey Weinstein was able to get away with heinous acts for decades, if you're not part of the program, then you're basically, you're an outsider, right? And so, with Adrian Brody, kissing her like that, is very, very similar to what happened with Justin Timberlake. So, the gist of all this is that it's a humiliation ritual, part of society when you're somebody that's like a warlock or you're in a Masonic lodge or whatever. What happens is you perform rituals, you perform rites, even a fraternity or sorority, like whether it's hazing, that's a ritual, that's a rite. But even outside of just hazing, sometimes people will be like, hey, I need you to run to the store, like that Puff Daddy MTV show where he was, hazing people, and be like, hey, I need you to walk 5 miles to that store and get me that. A frat might do that, a lodge might do that, a coven might do that. You know what I'm saying? So when somebody's being initiated, they're going to have their certain rites. You know what I'm saying? And then people have their certain ceremonies. So the Oscars is one of the biggest Masonic ceremonies there is, right? Because everybody wants to be famous. Everybody wants to be a celebrity. You could have $1 billion and you still can't get a hit movie. It's like Elon Musk, if he made a movie right now, or Bezos, they can make a movie right now. All the money in the world doesn't matter if they're not in the right circles and they're not in the right, parts of Hollywood. Just like Madonna, right? Like, we know Madonna's had huge hits, and I'm sure she's got new songs that she just made, but they're not getting on the radio because there's people, there's younger Masons that might be related to, blood gangs that she's not a part of, so she can't even get in because she's not in a blood gang. Like Trippie Redd, he's a blood gang member, and, he's getting a lot of leak because, a lot of airplay, because he's a gang member, right? You know what I'm saying? So they're promoting, you got to be a black, it's a prerequisite now. Shout out to my homie H Prism for pointing out, kind of when XXXTentacion came out, he was pointing out, like, yo, you got to have a criminal record now to be a new artist. Or you got to do some heinous thing against women to be a new artist, whether it's NBA YoungBoy, throwing his girlfriend in the staircase, or, XXXTentacion beating up his girlfriend, all these things, they make all these prerequisites. All right. So, when Justin Timberlake, ripped off, Janet Jackson's garment, right, exposing her chest at the Super Bowl in front of everybody, that was a ritual too, right? Because I'm not talking about, just Illuminati, this and that, and stuff like that. Illuminati is just one lodge out of a million, so it doesn't have to be Illuminati. It can be a million lodges, That's why I was bringing up the Thelema Lodge, the Thelema, kind of spawning out of the Rosicrucians, but they're kind of more on their own tip, But Madame Blavatsky had, an impact on all this stuff, But, yeah, so Adrian Brody, tongue kissing Halle Berry out of the blue. Imagine if Wesley Snipes did that. Imagine if Wesley Snipes was on stage and opened the thing and he just tongue kissed Cameron Diaz. What would happen? His career would be over. He might be arrested. You know what I'm saying? It wouldn't be funny. You know what I'm saying? But when you're in the top cast, you're allowed to do those things. You know what I'm saying? You're allowed to get away with whatever. You know what I'm saying? So, Adrian Brody is another example of black humiliation Oscar rituals. So that's what the nature of this lecture is. We're talking about, Hollywood rituals, Hollywood ritual humiliation, whether it's, black males wearing dresses, even Wesley Snipes had to wear the dress, Tu Wong Fu, even Dave Chappelle had to wear the dress. In, I believe it was that not Middle Eastern, maybe the Robin Hood movie. It was, I know it was Back in Time. He was wearing the dress. I think it was a Robin Hood movie or one of those movies where it's like Robin Hood kind of feudal, kind of medieval era or whatever, But you don't see that. You don't see, you see, Kurt Cobain chose to do it, but you don't see, dozens of Euro male celebrities or even Latino celebrities having to do it. Obviously John Leguizamo had to do it too, the dress ritual. So those are just one of many rituals. And So here at TTM Academy, we have students that of all around the world, all walks of life. And so, I'm giving y'all tools to be a successful person in the entertainment industry, because to be successful, you have to know the rules. And if you don't know that there's these, lodges and cults and Thelema groups and you don't know about the existence of, covens and things like that, you won't have all the tools necessary to understand why there's glass ceilings or glass walls. Because a glass ceiling is when you're trying to go upwards movement and you can't go farther, right? Because there's institutional things set up. There's gatekeepers, and that's what I was saying, like with Madonna not being able to get on the radio, it's because of gatekeepers. It's like, I'm sure a lot of classic musicians from all eras want to get on the radio, but they can't, because they're not connected with the right gatekeepers. They were connected with the right gatekeepers maybe 50 years ago. Madonna had the right gatekeepers in the 80s and maybe the 90s, but now she doesn't have her connections have faded and they've dulled. So to all new, if you're a DJ out there and you're a black male DJ and you're in the middle of let's say you're in the middle of Spain and you want to get a gig, if you don't realize that in every bodega in Spain they have Sambo statues. I'll show the one I actually I filmed this one in when I was in Spain. Last time I was in Spain, I was shocked. I was like near Malaga, near Picasso's hometown, and they had this giant Sambo statue in there. It's a chocolate company called Conguitos, and Conguitos are chocolates that I think it was made out of Mexico, or it could be produced in Spain. I think it's a Spanish company that they sell it to Mexico. But out there, there's no NAACPs or whatever. So if you're a black DJ, you want to get a gig in Spain, I would say move from Spain. Don't go to Spain, because racism is so extreme in Spain that, you don't see any black millionaires. You don't see black billionaires. So, to the young people out there, it's important to, plant your seeds where the ground's fertile, right? Like if you're in Russia and you're trying to plant oranges, it's not going to work. Right? You're going to be like, what's wrong with me? Am I a bad farmer? I'm doing all the right steps. I'm planting these oranges, right? And it's not working, right? But if you go to Florida and you plant the same orange and you do all those same steps, you're going to have some healthy orange trees, right? They call that hardiness. There's different, each seed has a different hardiness. So we have a caste system in our society, and every artist, whether you're a musician, visual artist, there's a hardiness. Even your sexuality comes into play, Like my homie Andre Bear, he expressed to me decades ago that, there's a glass ceiling for straight brothers in fine arts, like painting, visual arts. You know what I'm saying? Because if you're not doing cocaine with the right people in the backstage of, the Guggenheim or whatever, you're not going to be on, Like, for instance, my homegirl, out of Dubai, actually, my homegirl out of Dubai, Fatima, or Fatima, she probably pronounces it Fatima. Fatima, she's a dope music artist as well. I'll put a little picture of her, but she hooked me up with my gig at the Exit Gallery. I haven't even posted that, but I'm gonna post that. I did this like experimental Tesla thing. I had this Tesla coil and was triggering, a bunch of stuff, chopping up a deconstruction of, rap stuff at Exit Art Gallery. I was doing this performance, and, I met her through Eric Lane, and, he knew her from just, being around the, downtown New York, like queer art scene, because actually my former student, Shane from Hood by Air, I taught Shane from Hood by Air. I taught him how to make beats. I taught him Fruity Loops, back in the, early 2000s, right? And, he's actually, just an example that, he was with the right people early on, and, he's been able to make it. But, there might be another fashion designer that he doesn't have those friends that are in the downtown scene and doing all the cocaine. Like, I never did cocaine. I've never done it in my life. So that makes it, if you're not willing to do cocaine, then that's another barrier for you as an artist. So that's why I'm, bringing these tools to artists that don't know. If you're willing to do anything, like a Machiavellian type of thing, you can get farther. But I would never, promote being Machiavellian because, being Machiavellian includes, sociopathic things. And they just created a new term for it. They're calling it dark empathy, right? Somebody that's empathic, but they're actually using their sociopathic and Machiavellian, and they're using their empathic abilities for the dark side. You know what I'm saying? Kind of like Darth Vader style, right? Or the Sith style, right? But notice they're calling it dark empath, right? Dark, like, dark, just like dark-skinned people, this and that. They equate dark with negativity, and they call themselves the white caste, right? And that means like, hey, we're good. If you look up in the dictionary, just like in Malcolm X's autobiography, you look up in the dictionary right now, and you see the synonyms of white, and you see nice, kind, pure, innocent, all those type of things. That's why when Adrian Brody, literally assaults Halle Berry on stage by tongue kissing her, that's part of that. Like, oh, Adrian Brody, he's just innocent. He's a white man. He wasn't trying to harm her. It was all fun. And that's how it starts. And that's how these little things. Somebody, one of my Facebook people told me, they're like, well, what's the context? I mean, like, why is this? Why does this matter? What part of the context is that? All right, I'll be right back. My baby's crying. 1 second. You okay, man? Yeah. All right, there you go. All right. So somebody said, what's the context? And the context is white supremacy is always the context. A lot of people be like, oh, you're playing the race card, but there is no such thing. If European males own 99% of all the wealth in the West, then anything that's dealing with economics is dealing with them manipulating it or puppeteering it or running it. So that means that there is no such thing as a race card because race is ingrained into economics, right? And that's what we're talking about here. We're talking about, ritual humiliation of black males and people spreading it and forwarding it. And, because people are always, all these ratchet memes and all that stuff. It's all, black culture, and people are forwarding all these things, So, if you look at the history of it, from Birth of a Nation all the way to, I guess my mom remembers when, I believe the show Julia came out. And that was the first time black people had seen a positive, like mammy type of role, like the woman in Gone with the Wind, all the mammy stuff and the Step and Fetch It, all that was black exploitation, even though it was before the black exploitation era, all that, Amos and Andy and all that stuff, originally Amos and Andy were white voices. And then when they made it a TV show, they're like, oh, well, we gotta, let's get some black actors for it. Because they were like, hey, go low, I don't know, I'm a, all that type of talk. You know what I'm saying? They've always been mocking us, right? And then, so, now we're going to go on to Jada. Now, shout out to Daz, I believe it was Daz Dillinger, that brought up that Jada statutory raped, Chris from Crisscross, the dark-skinned one, I believe. She was dating him. And when he was a teen, right, at the height of his fame, he was like 14, and she was over 18. I don't know how old she was, whether she was 25, 22. She was in her 20s, having a statutory R-word, thing with Chris from Crisscross. And when it's women, it's like, oh, that's great. But when it's R. Kelly, obviously, yeah, mute R. Kelly. You know what I'm saying? But when people talk about mute R. Kelly, but if it's a sister, if it's a black woman, people are like, protect Jada. But we know that not only did Jada do that with Crisscross, she actually hooked up with her son's homeless, depressed friend. That whole entanglement thing everybody was talking about months ago or last year or whatever. I don't ever want to be like a gossip column or anything like that. But when it's sociological issues and I hate to say even sociological, when it's, issues dealing with politics. I'll say politics. When it's political issues, all that stuff is very, very important for young DJs, young artists, graffiti writers, break dancers, you know what I'm saying? So a lot of people come to America for opportunities, and I would suggest, if you're a black DJ in Spain, I would say leave Spain and come to America for those opportunities, because Spain, you're just going to hit a lot of glass walls. Like I was saying, if you're not aware of racism and how it affects you or how it helps you, you're going to be, you're not going to have all the tools that you need to be fully successful, right? You're going to be wondering, where all these forces are coming from. It's like if you didn't understand gravity, you'd be like, why is everything falling down, So if you really understand, you have to understand racism to be able to navigate through these heavy waters, and all these waters are extremely heavy racist waters, right? So now, like I was saying before, Will Smith in his show, he sullied his whole legacy. He made the show, like, they try to make it more like dramatic and gangster and things like that, and they made everybody gangster. They made the guy that plays Will Smith, they gave him a gun charge, and they're trying to be like, oh, this is the modern update. These times kids are more gangster now. But it's like, no, there's always gangster kids, but they're just constantly promoting that stuff. And right now, gangster stuff just took over the airwaves. That doesn't mean that it's our culture. So they're constantly trying to push these things on us, like whether it's Pose. Like, yeah, that's your culture. I'm not disimposed. I think Pose is an interesting show, but you don't see Mexican Pose. You don't see European Pose. You don't see a Pose all about the European diaspora. You know what I'm saying? Only that type of stuff is always, the ballroom culture is always directed at us. You know what I'm saying? And I know Caucasian people that do ball dance. You know what I'm saying? But they're not showing that. So with all this stuff, you got to remember that there's a history behind this, and the history is black foolery. Will Smith, somebody might have paid him to do that. And it could also be the whole Kanye thing too. If you think about Kanye's been dominating the media, this is the first time that somebody else has been able to really take the media like that. In recent times, take it out of Kanye's attention, because before everybody was talking about Kanye like, oh, he's popping off, he's a crazy black man. Now either Will is the crazy black man, or Chris Rock is the fool. You know what I'm saying? And obviously Chris Rock has to get whatever roles he can get, and he's trying to make his paper move up, and he's always had to play the fool or the crackhead. But I see people for in the crackhead memes, and so this whole ritual that Will has opened the doorway to has opened the floodgates to everybody and their mama forwarding images of blackmail humiliation. And that's all I'm talking about. That's all this lecture is about, that we need to end this one-sided kind of humiliation of black people that's promoted in Hollywood, right? Because the whole history of Hollywood, even my blackface chart proves that all the modern people that are worth over 10 million have all done blackface, and they all get invited to the Oscars, right? Nobody's saying nobody's canceling all of them for wearing blackface, right? Nobody's canceling BTS, an Asian group, for wearing a actual Nazi hat. Nobody's canceling them, but Kanye's canceled, right? For dissing a guy who's made jokes about assaulting babies. You know what I'm saying? So, that's all I gotta say. So, peace. Oh yeah, I forgot to add something to the lecture. So I'm adding this to the lecture. I'm gonna, add this to that 50-minute lecture I just did. So yeah, I forgot to talk about cuckold culture and all the dynamics of all that. Because a lot of people are like, oh yeah, Will's a cuckold. For those of you that don't know what a cuckold is, or a cuck, that's like a male whose wife is like, smashing other people and kind of making a fool of them. So obviously in the media, ever since the thing happened with Jada smashing her child's, this is why Jada to me is a sick person. She's smashing her son's depressed homeless friend. You know what I'm saying? Imagine if a guy did that, you know what I'm saying, and smashed a woman that was homeless and depressed and and it was her daughter's friend. Imagine some 50-year-old dude doing that. You'd be like, he's a sleazy guy, and that's what Jada is. She's very sleazy. So the fact that Will was kind of trying to be like a nobleman or a gentleman or something, like like a touche type of a thing, and be like, hey, I'm defending my wife's chastity type of thing. But they obviously they're poly. So if they're poly, you can't really be talking about chastity stuff. But I'm not getting to the moral implications of all this. I'm just talking about the images of black males acting irrational. I've even seen memes that are like, oh, now you're going to work on Monday. Us black males have to prove we're not going to like slap our coworkers, or we're not going to come out of pocket. We're not going to beast, or beasting, people call it beasting. We're not going to wild out, what I'm saying? Because they're already thinking like, oh, they're irrational, they're violent, they might try to hurt me. It was interesting walking in New York now with my baby, because usually, women are clutching their purses when they see me, especially walking around with the flight jacket, whatnot. Women are clutching their purses, but when I have a baby, they're not clutching their purses, unless they're not. Sometimes they're still clutching their purses, even with the baby, because they're not really even looking at me. Being part of being a black male is to walk down the street and women of different cultures don't even look at you because they're afraid that you're going to rob them. You know what I'm saying? Even I had people almost run me off the sidewalk pushing a baby stroller because they don't even see me, and that's part of institutional racism. So with Will and Jada, the fact that she actually smashed a minor, right, which is a statutory thing, and the fact that she smashed her son's homeless, depressed friend, because him being her son's friend is a violation. Him being homeless is a violation, and him being depressed is a violation, especially her being a millionaire. So it's like, we're coming from a very sick culture. And I forgot to mention the S word too, because remember Will and Jada, they sent their kids to a school that actually has Scientology books. If you look that up, they swear up and down they're not Scientologists, but they've actually, the school that they sent to their kids to in Hollywood actually has L. Ron Hubbard books. And if you look up L. Ron Hubbard, he was an actual racist. And it kind of connects back to the Thelema thing I was talking about, because, Jack Parsons, Thelema Society, Coven, or whatever, Hollywood white warlocks and whatnot. L. Ron Hubbard became, stole his wife and became the head of that lodge. And then he left and started, Scientology, you know what I'm saying? And Scientology is a very, very big block in Hollywood, a very big political block, even though it's a unspoken political block. So we've got, KKK, Birth of Nation, and then we've got, the Scientology stuff. But as far as cuck culture, I'm seeing a lot of posts, everybody's forwarding, like, they're saying, he did that movie Hancock, so they're like calling it Hancuck. I'll show that picture, so, I'm sure Will has been dealing with people calling him a cuckold for the past year, or ever since that August thing came out, because August is the name of her son's friend that she smashed. You know what I'm saying? Which is a deplorable thing. So it shows that, it's like if Will is trying to, be a so-called gentleman, and you notice how he had his head high. He's like trying to be I'm being a nobleman, gentleman, or whatever. He was trying to be so-called noble and stand up for the chastity of his wife. It was obviously staged. That whole thing was staged. You know what I'm saying? Like, some Euro producers sitting in Aspen probably wrote that down, and Chris Rock was like, yeah, it'll be funny. We got to bring, because black people don't really care about the Oscars, but now maybe black people start watching the Oscars. They have a lot of motivations for wanting to not just increase the viewership, but increase increasing black male foolery. And now if you look, every single person in the world, probably 80% of the people online now in the world are forwarding some type of black male foolery. So you got to think about when you're blackmailing, you're putting your job application in, you know what I'm saying, and things like that. You know what I'm saying? I went to the Stern School of Business, one of the top business schools in the country. I put in applications, You know what I'm saying? People don't, you know, once they know you're black, you know, there's a lot of barriers, you know what I'm saying? So that's why I'm giving our students the tools to understand what institutional racism is, you know, because a lot of people are like, what, you know, how is that, you know, what context, you know what I'm saying? But, you know, like I said before, you know, racism is tied into economics. It's in the core of Western economics. So it's always going to be, you know, there is no race card. It's always going to be interwoven into the context of anything that happens in, you know, whether it's Putin, you know, bombing Ukraine, and there are Nazis in the Ukraine, just like there's Nazis in the in Russia. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, it's an international thing. You know, a lot of Europeans feel that like racism and race dynamics and all that stuff is just an American thing, but they're like, no, it's actually international. I've proven that with my charts, right? And we've proven that, you know, the actors in Hollywood, all the top ones have done blackface, which is a black caste or black person humiliation ritual. It's a ritual, you know, and when people do these rituals, they can move up. So maybe now Chris Rock's done his ritual. You know, we saw that Will did the ritual. He got his Oscar. Chris Rock did the ritual. Maybe he's gonna move up now. Maybe, you know, he's gonna get that role, get his Oscar a couple of Oscars from now. You know what I'm saying? Or get that comedy he's always been wanting to, you know, that script that he wrote that everybody's been denying for decades. Maybe they're gonna let it fly now. You know, maybe his you know, his producers, you know, are gonna help him. You know, his agents or whatever. You know, the doorkeepers, the gatekeepers are gonna help. You know, so. You know, yeah, I just want to talk about the issue of that, because if speaking about cuckolds, if people are calling Will a you know, black male cuckold, you know, on one day we're calling black males cuckolds, the next day we're calling them stalkers for wanting to be really good dads, you know, and you know, as a black male, it's just, you know, it's very, very troubling and concerning, because you know, when I was posting about Jada and the statutory R-word thing, about, you know, her smashing the guy from Crisscross, and, you know, people were laughing at it. I saw black women laughing at it. I saw, and I'll show, you know, exhibits of that. I saw Latino cast people laughing at it. Saw European, you know, cast people laughing at it, like, ha ha ha, you know, like black male, you know, statutory R-word of black males is funny, ha ha ha. You know what I'm saying? When I saw the film, I was there when Moonlight was playing. I saw Moonlight when it debuted in New York, and when they threw the sister on the hood of the car, and they started smashing on the hood of the car, I knew it was playing into the black humiliation rituals, because there's also sexual humiliation. That's why I was bringing up Janet Jackson and Adrian Brody. But right when that happened, I shouted out in the crowd. I was joking. I said, Oscar! I was joking in the crowd. I said, Oscar, because I knew it was a black trope. You know, I knew that, oh, they threw her in the hood of the car, you know, just dogging her out, just, you know, making black women look, you know, lower. You know, I screamed out Oscar in the crowd, you know, because I was offended by the movie. I thought the movie was just playing in all these stereotypes. And what happened? The movie won an Oscar. The movie actually won an Oscar. That whack movie Moonlight actually won an Oscar, because why? It's promoting, you know, effemination and emasculation of black males. You know, so there's a lot of, you know, and that's why a lot of people say, you know, Daniel Glover from the, you know, the guy behind Atlanta, the Atlanta TV show, they know that he said he figured out the algorithm. He understands the algorithm of, you know, colonialism, you know, white exploitation algorithm. He knows what they want, so he's able to put these things together in a music video, and he got a Grammy for it, right? A Grammy for a video of black people getting slaughtered, right? Black, you know, and you can say like, oh, that was, you know, super amazing and da da da, but he's still, you know, still some black exploitation stuff where black people are being slaughtered. It's actually, you know, because, you know, Childish Gambino is actually one of my fans. You know, in the MySpace days, you know, when I created Crunk Tesla, you know, I was influenced by my homie African Sciences, you know what I'm saying? And, you know, but once I made, you know, Crunk Tesla, then, you know, Childish Gambino came out, and, you know, a lot of different names like that. It was a movement, you know what I'm saying? And the fact that he was able to win a Grammy just shows that there is a formula, there is a ritual formula. If you perform the right rituals in your music video, you're a black man, you got your guns, you got your emasculation, you got your throwing violence towards black women, you're going to be very successful, or could be successful. Not that you are going to, but you have to have the right ingredients. And why is this? Why is Hollywood wanting to deprecate black males? Because it becomes a relativity thing, to where, when you see Iron Man and you see Robert Downey Jr. wearing blackface in a whole movie, and it's on airplanes and nobody talks about it. All right, but then you see him as Iron Man. That goes back into the birth rate politics, and where it's like what Dr. Francis Cress Welsing was talking about. If everybody just mixed together, what would happen if racism was eliminated tomorrow? Then that means everybody would come together, everybody would mix, and everybody would be, become black again, like it was originally. You know what I'm saying? Because we were one people, and we spread, and it became diaspora, and then another person left, and there's a diaspora of a diaspora, and a diaspora of a diaspora. But if we all came together and eliminated racism, we would all, people's skin color would get darker, and Asian hair is dominant too. So it's like if everybody came together and mixed, people would be all black and Asian. You know what I'm saying? A lot of the more niche ethnic groups would blend in. So a lot of people say that they need that for survival, and that's what Francis Cress Welsing, we've spoken about it in the Howard Stern lecture, because Howard Stern's a DJ who's worn blackface at least 4 times, multiple occasions, and he's always, dissing black people. He's always deprecating us. But when you see Iron Man, Iron Man becomes the archetype. I wanted to talk about the converse of what is the opposite of the black fool, of the tomfoolery. The opposite is the Iron Man, is Superman, is Batman, right? Batman, and then you got the Zoe Kravitz as a contrast. You know what I'm saying? You see him, so it makes women that are like light-skinned women be like, hey, I want a man like Batman. You know what I'm saying? Or it makes Asian women be like, hey, I want a man like Batman. It makes black women be like, I want a man like Batman. You know what I'm saying? They're promoting, they're trying to stay the status quo, meaning staying in control of society by keeping their numbers up, right? By keeping the birth rate politics in their favor. So through propaganda in Hollywood, they can use actors to be the archetypes or casting or the cast for the society. So if you're a 15-year-old Caucasian girl right now, they want her to see that and say, well, I don't want to ever marry a black guy because they act crazy. They're always acting crazy on World Star and this and that. I want a guy that's like Johnny Depp, that's got money, and he's successful, and he's not doing crazy weird stuff. You don't see white males in all these roles, all these crazy roles, and doing all these crazy things. You know what I'm saying? And Will winning the Oscar right after that just shows that he did the right rights, and now he's it was most likely all scripted. But definitely refer back to my blackface chart, because you'll see all these all these actors, be it Jimmy Kimmel, even Questlove winning a Grammy or winning an Oscar or whatever. Questlove just winning, he's, his boss man wore blackface, so it's like you've got to submit to the blackface, you've got to submit to the rituals to be able to succeed in Hollywood. But, there's a new thing happening in Atlanta. There's a lot of black filmmakers were coming up, and, things are going to be changing very quickly, because now, it's very cheap to make a high quality film. And, Black Hollywood, Jordan Peele's the beginning of it. It's just the beginning. And they think they can control it by just funding, people making Us, where they're like doing horrible things with babies in the video. I didn't even watch Us because I heard about the scenes of what they're doing to babies in the video, and I have a child, and that was a queer sister that made that. And, in breaking up black families, they've been able to use through like Black Lives Matter or different groups, they've been able to, have this anti-black family kind of rhetoric. And that's, and we see that happening with Will and all this of just like, oh yeah, we're all poly, but I'm going to slap this other guy, and everybody condones it. You know what I'm saying? But if it was, if it was reversed and it was a black man slapping a white person, they'd be like, he's an animal. But when it's, when it's black folks, it's all good. You know what I'm saying? So, really think about it when you're watching X-Men, or you're watching, go to the X-Men where they go to Nigeria and it's just the, Euro dude slaying all the Nigerians, and then he gets, the guy with the swords, the fast swords that can stop the swords with the bullets. All these images are implanted in us subconsciously and unconsciously, in our subconscious and our unconscious, and even into our shadows, you know what I'm saying, which, lives within the unconscious and subconscious. All these things are being implanted into us, suggested, they call it suggestion, right? So we're being suggested all these different stereotypes, and it really does affect us. So what happens is that, that black guy applies for the job, and they're not going to give him the job. They're going to give the guy that looks more like the guy from Interstellar, like, hey, he looks like a nice American farmer type, like he might, he looks like that guy, nice strong jaw, Nordic features or whatever. You know what I'm saying? So, it's just very, very troubling when all you see in Hollywood is black deprecation, and then the converse of that is white appreciation. So appreciation means making the value of something go up. Deprecation means making the value of something go down. So Hollywood's the core of Hollywood is black deprecation as it relates to white appreciation. All right. So, think about that next time you watch X-Men or Avengers or all these things, and think about, how is this film factoring into white appreciation? Appreciation means their value going up, their real estate going up, their estates going up, their net worths going up, and black deprecation. Our communities, it used to be back in the day, everybody's grandma had a yard and a garden. Like my grandma had a garden. Now everybody's black folks, we're all living in apartments. We lost all of our land. We've been kicked out, off of our land, taking our land, even convinced into, selling off our land. You know what I'm saying? So just think about that. Appreciation, Euro appreciation as it relates to black deprecation, right? And that's the core thesis of Hollywood, the core geist of Hollywood. All right, and that's all I gotta say. Peace.